Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a bookish trip.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well during this time where we all have to stay home, and hope you're finding stuff to do. I know today we're enjoying the nice outdoors, so you might see some kids running around, you might see a dog or two or some chickens, and so anyway, thank you so much for having me today. I'd like to share a short excerpt of my new book, Her Merriweather Hero. And for all my books, I like to share, have a theme verse. And for this one, it's Hebrews 6:18 through 19. And I feel like this really goes along, this can encourage us right now with what we're going through, having to stay home and everything. This is from Hebrews. So God has given both his promise and his oath. These two things are unchangeable because it is impossible for God to lie. Therefore, we who have fled to him for refuge can have great confidence as we hold to the hope that lies before us. This hope is a strong and trustworthy anchor for our souls. It leads us through the curtain into God's inner sanctuary. So my theme for this book is kind of God being our anchor. So, without further ado, here is Her Merriweather Hero, Chapter 1. Kendall Mulligan pushed her sunglasses onto the top of her head with an exasperated sigh. She stomped her foot on the dock and attempted to swipe a few tangled auburn curls from her face. Her New England accent came out stronger because of her frustration. "Carly, we're going to miss the ferry. What are you doing?" Her younger sister's blonde hair flipped to one side in the sea breeze, only enhancing her lustrous, supermodel quality blonde hair. It was no surprise Carly's hair remained unaffected by the humidity, while her own morphed into an unruly ball of fuzzy Angora yarn on steroids. The realization caused even further irritation, as her sister flipped her hair the other way and laughed while batting her long eyelashes at the male cashier behind the counter of the coffee stand. One customer behind her in the line rolled his eyes. She was flirting. Actually flirting, while they were supposed to be boarding the ferry for Merriweather. Unbelievable. Kendall heard Zoe whining at her feet and reached down to pet the Australian shepherd's soft fur. "It's all right, girl. It's not you I'm angry at. You always listen, don't you?" Kendall turned her attention back to Carly, who was writing her number down on a napkin for the handsome cashier. The ferry horn sounded a second time. "Fine, I'll go without you, then," Kendall harumphed and whipped around. She hurried down the dock toward the ferry with Zoe trotting close behind. Maybe their mother was right. Although she hated to admit it, maybe Carly wasn't ready or mature enough to be her business partner. "Hey, wait up, sis!" She ignored Carly, not pausing until boarding the boat. She leaned against the rails, watching the Savannah coastline drift away. As her sister approached, huffing from rushing to catch up, Kendall ignored her and gazed over the side of the boat at the seagulls gliding above the water. "Wow, that guy wouldn't let me leave until I gave him my number. I promise I was trying to hurry." Kendall pursed her lips before speaking, trying not to spout out something she'd regret later. "If this is a preview of how things are going to go, maybe you should stay on the mainland. The locals on the islands are weary of outsiders as it is, and—" "Sorry," Carly cut in. "I know how important this is to you." After a side glance from her, Carly added, "And me, of course." Kendall released a deep sigh as the ferry pulled away from the dock. "I'm sorry, too. I didn't mean to snap at you. I'm freaking out a little." Carly attempted to suppress a giggle. "I couldn't tell." At Kendall's eye roll, she handed her a foam cup of cappuccino. "Here, I got you one, too. Figured it might help you relax." She thanked her sister and took the cup, feeling the stiffness ease from her shoulders as she took a sip of the hot French vanilla-flavored drink. "Feeling better?" Kendall nodded and managed to smile. "A little." "I thought so. Now there's something I want you to look at." Carly grabbed her shoulders and turned her away from the railing. See that? She scoffed, realizing Carly was talking about her RV parked on the ferry. Yeah, I know you're probably going to say it's a piece of junk. I never should have bought it. No, I don't see a piece of junk. I see potential. Our new mobile clinic. We'll get it fixed up in no time. You may not think I take things seriously, but it's different this time. It's going to be a new beginning for both of us. Her sister's words coped a faint smile. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm hoping for. Carly shook Kendall's shoulders and giggled. Oh, come on, where's your enthusiasm? We're living the dream. We get to work and live on a remote island without all the tourist traps. We can go to the beach and relax whenever we want. Aren't you excited? Of course I am. Kendall's smile grew bigger, and soon they were both holding hands and jumping up and down on the dock of the ship, with Zoe barking and trying to jump up on them. Independence Islands, here we come! Kendall wasn't sure what to expect when the ferry drew close to one of the islands long off the coast of Georgia. She took out a map she'd printed off of the Independence Islands. I guess this is Merriweather. We'll make her our home base for now anyway. The little beach house I bought isn't very big, but it will suit us. Carly nodded and studied the map in her hand. And Mimosa's the biggest one, right? Second one to the left? I've heard it's popular with tourists. Kendall nodded. Yeah, but I don't want to venture there for a month or two, at least. We need to concentrate on setting up our clinic and getting to know the locals. Getting our name out there is one of our top priorities. I'd like us to be ready for business in 3 weeks, tops. There'll be plenty of time to check out the restaurants and activities on the big island later. Her sister made a fake salute, trying to keep her straight face. Aye, aye, Captain. I read you loud and clear. Kendall shook her head, hoping deep down her sister was serious about their new business venture. Here's the chickens I was talking about. Okay, here we go. Kendall shook her head, hoping deep down her sister was serious about their new business venture. At 23 years old, almost 7 years younger than her, Carly was still growing out of her party phase. However, in spite of her carefree nature, she had applied herself in school and earned her degree as a veterinary technician with honors. She believed her sister would be a good assistant if there were minimal distractions. As they neared the harbor at Merriweather, Kendall took everything in with goosebumps rising up on her arms. There were hardly any people around except for the ferry workers and the people walking to their cars in the small parking lot. As her eyes drifted upward, she saw white sandy mounds, the hilly terrain, and a road snaking through the trees. It certainly was a beautiful island, yet she prayed the RV would make it up the curvy, hilly road. An elderly gentleman with a kind smile helped tie the ferry to the dock and then lower the ramp. Kendall and Carly got into the RV and drove off the ferry, parking before getting out, introducing herself, and asked the man for directions to the eastern side of the island. That was where their beach house was located. His sky-blue eyes twinkled as he told her, and then patted Zoe, who melted, and allowed him to rub her belly. So, you're a vet? I have an older corgi who hasn't seen a vet in years. Let me know when you open up shop. We will, sir. Thank you. Kendall smiled as they got back into the RV, happy to already have a potential customer. It was also encouraging to discover at least one of the locals was friendly and didn't mind welcoming an outsider. She hoped the rest would be welcoming as well. The RV shuddered a little on the winding island roads leading from the harbor, but once they reached the top, things evened out. The island was a lot different from any she'd ever been to before. There were no tourists, hotels, or souvenir shops. For miles, they didn't even see a store until reaching the outskirts of a residential area. It was a small grocery store named Banner General, and she made note of it for later, when they'd need supplies. Soon they were driving along the beach. with nice homes in light blue, mint green, and pink, spread out along the coast. As they drove further down, the homes became smaller and closer together. Kendall grinned when she saw a sign for Cattail Drive and turned right. "Carly, we're getting close. Could you look at the numbers on the mailboxes? We're looking for 4925. Carly nodded. "All right, we've got 4897, 4899, 4901. Her voice drifted off as they traveled on. Uh-oh. 4927. Looks like we passed it. How did we do that?" Kendall struggled to find a long enough area to turn around in, but after several tries, she finally got the big rig headed in the direction they'd come from. "Okay, let's try this again." They came back to the mailbox saying 4927. "Well, that's strange. It just skips right over it." Carly furrowed her brow before setting the mailbox again. "Are you sure you read the directions or read the address correctly?" Kendall reached into her purse and pulled out her phone to check the email from her realtor. After scanning the screen, she nodded. "Yeah, I'm sure." She put her phone down and drove a little further before seeing a wooden pole wrapped in vines and an overgrown gravel driveway. She parked the RV and got out of the car. "Kendall, what are you doing?" her sister called through the open window. "Just hold on a sec. I wonder." She pulled at some of the vines, revealing a black surface underneath. Then, after removing a few more, she saw the shape of a mailbox and the correct address. "There! I think we're home, Carly." They made it down the overgrown drive, and a light blue two-story house appeared to the right. Kendall noticed the missing pieces of siding and boarded up lower windows first. Carly cringed. "This is it?" Kendall rested her head on the steering wheel and released a sigh of despair. "I guess so, but it looks nothing like the picture the realtor sent. It must have been taken years ago. Serves me right for buying it sight unseen. This is a complete disaster." The worried look on her sister's face melted away, and she smiled. "Well, I'm up for an adventure if you are, sis." She turned her head, still keeping it resting on the steering wheel. "Really? Do you think we can do this, or should we back out now?" "Of course we can do this. We're not going to let an old rundown house scare us away." "If you say so." They walked up the stairs to the wraparound porch, only to see a lizard scurry out from underneath one of them. Carly screamed and clung onto Kendall for all she was worth. "Yuck!" "Just hold on." She giggled as they approached the front door and rummaged through her purse for a key and unlocked it. Stepping inside, she was relieved to see the inside of the house was mostly intact, besides a thick layer of dust on all the flat surfaces and some sand on the floor. There was still furniture from the previous owner, covered with sheets. Carly helped her uncover everything. Thankfully, it was all in good condition, since they didn't have any money to buy anything new. The small eat-in kitchen included a range, fridge, and microwave. It also had a small nook in the corner with a big table, with a table big enough for 4 people. There was no dishwasher, but they could hand wash their dishes until they could afford to purchase a mobile one on wheels. Making their way up the stairs to the master bedroom, she found a full-size bed, dresser, and spacious closet. When they walked into the second bedroom, it had a similar setup, but a little smaller. Carly seemed pleased with it and pulled back the curtains to study the ocean view. Feeling a buzz in her pocket, Kendall stepped out and headed back downstairs, allowing her sister time to acclimate in her new room. She pulled out her phone and noticed she'd missed a call from her mother. She paused, finger hovering over the icon to call her back. Then she gave in and pressed it. The last thing she wanted was for her mother to be worried about them. Her mother answered on the first ring, her voice laced with worry. "Thank goodness you called. I was about to call airport security and make sure nothing happened to you two." Kendall sighed and closed her eyes as she stood in the hallway. "Mom, please calm down. We just arrived on Merriweather. I promised we'd call you by tonight. Oh, I remember that now. I'm sorry. I'm still not keen on the idea of the two of you heading off to some strange island out in the middle of nowhere. We're fine, just busy. It takes a lot of time and work to adjust to moving to a new place. Her mother sighed. Okay, so you're at the house? Does it seem stable? You know, the other day I just saw on the news this woman bought a house by the beach, and the roof caved in on her. It was just terrible, Kendall. She barely survived. Kendall rubbed her forehead, feeling a tension headache coming on. The house is fine. It needs some fixing up, but it's got good bones. We'll be perfectly safe, I promise. Okay, I don't mean to be a nag. I just love my girls. A smile curved on her lips, knowing in spite of her mother's anxious nature, she was only trying to be a good mother. We love you too. Try not to worry. We'll be fine. You'll see. We'll call with updates every few days. After saying goodbye to her mother, Kendall made her way back to the living room and began removing the sheets from the furniture, smiling when noticing it was still in great condition. She found a broom in the hall closet and swept up all the sand and dirt on the wood floor. Then she found a feather duster and cleared the cobwebs from the ceiling. Last, she moved the couch and chairs to make the room look bigger and more inviting. When Kendall finished, she sighed and put her hands on her hips with a smile. The beach house certainly did have potential. Kendall grunted while pulling one last nail out of the board in the window the next morning. Her sister held onto the wood and slowly lowered it to the ground. There, she said, stepping down from the ladder to look at the front of the house. That looks so much better. With a little paint on the trim, it will look as good as new. I agree, her sister said, stepping beside her. And now we can look out the window and see the ocean, instead of planks of wood. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and grinned. I'm going to go for a quick jog with Zoe. Want to come along? Carly shook her head. No, I'm going to go soak in the tub and do my nails. Aren't you tired? Kendall shrugged. A little, I guess, but I can't rest with so much to do. Running helps me think. I'll be back in half an hour. Okay, have fun, her sister said before turning to go back in the house. Kendall already had on her sleeveless shirt and yoga pants on, so she did some quick stretches and then headed down the path to the road. It was a perfect sunny day and not too hot. Zoe seemed content as they jogged a little longer than she intended. Along the way, she studied the lay of the land, admiring the scenery of the beach and watching the gulls scurry around in search of little fish on the surf. Looking further out, she noticed a few surfers out in the deep water, waiting to catch the perfect wave. The peaceful, slower-paced atmosphere put her at ease, and she had a feeling they'd made the right decision in moving to Merriweather Island. She slowed down to catch her breath, with Zoe panting loudly. They turned around and found a bench she'd noticed a few yards back. Kendall eased her back against the wooden panels and unfastened her water bottle and collapsible water bowl from her hydration belt. She poured some water for Zoe first and took a drink from the bottle for herself. Sorry, girl. I guess I got a little carried away, didn't I? Zoe looked up at her and panted happily, not looking too worse for wear, as Kendall ruffled the fur on the top of her head. She leaned her head back and released a labored breath. We'll just rest here for a few minutes and then head back to the house. If I can find it again. She laughed and looked back the way they'd come to study her surroundings, recalling the route home. Then she rested her eyes for a few minutes, enjoying the salty breeze on her face. At the sound of Zoe's bark, her eyes flew open. The dog tugged the leash right out of her grasp and bounded onto the beach, zigzagging to chase something in the sand. Zoe, what on earth? Kendall ran to catch her, but the dog ran away from her again. Come back here right now. Naughty girl. It was unlike Zoe to ignore her. She'd trained her well, but apparently the beach had caused the dog to lose her mind. Soon, Zoe ran back in her direction, chasing something scurrying across the white sand, a snow crab. Kendall screamed as the crab came close to her shoe with Zoe in pursuit. In a clumsy manner, the dog bumped into her, and she fell backwards into a mound of sand. Kendall stared at the blue sky for a moment, spitting out sand that had flown into her mouth. She sat up in time to see a blur of black and brown fur disappear over a distant sand dune. "Zoe!" she called in vain, and collapsed onto the sand again, slamming her fist into the grainy surface. What had gotten into that dog? After catching her breath, Kendall struggled to her feet, brushing the sand from her hair and workout clothes. She rushed over to the dune she'd seen Zoe dive over. After reaching the top of it, she gazed down to the sidewalk below, shielding her eyes from the sun. A man in athletic gear knelt on the ground, holding onto her dog's collar. When she approached, he stood up and held onto Zoe's leash. "Missing something?" She breathed a sigh of relief and took the leash from him, noticing he had a prosthetic leg on the right side. "Thanks, sir." Zoe's never seen snow crabs before, and all her obedience training just flew out the window. The man laughed, causing the dimple in his right cheek to become noticeable. "It's no problem at all. I've seen the calmest of canines lose their mind when they see those snow crabs. Nice dog, by the way. Is she an Aussie?" "Yeah." Kendall grinned, drawn in by his southern drawl and handsome features. Judging from his crew cut and sculpted arm muscles, she guessed he was military. His curious, sea-green eyes gazed into hers. "You're not from around here, are you?" She shook her head. "No, I just moved here with my sister. We're starting a new mobile veterinary clinic." His eyes lit up with recognition. "Oh, you're Kendall Mulligan, right? You bought the old Winston house down the street from us." You'll come to find out everyone knows everyone around here. A new neighbor moving in is an odd occurrence, so about everyone knows who you are on the street. "Oh," Kendall said with a nervous chuckle. "I guess we're neighbors then?" "Yeah, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Tyler Banner." "It's nice to meet you." She looked around, trying to regain her bearings. "I'm sorry to ask, but could you remind me how to get back? In all the excitement, I got a little turned around." He gave her another charming grin. "I'll tell you what. I was about to grab a quick bite to eat. Would you like to join me? Then I'll walk back with you. My sister's house is only a few doors down." Kendall's breath quickened. "Oh, I couldn't. I'm not even dressed to go out anywhere, and I've got Zoe. They won't let a dog into a restaurant." "Oh, don't worry about that. There's a food truck not too far from here. The menu is amazing, and they serve the best shrimp tacos I've ever tasted. Come on, it'll be my treat." Kendall's heart raced, trying to think of an excuse, but in the end she couldn't turn down free food. Her stomach was growling already. She aimed a shy smile at the handsome man before her and nodded. "Shrimp tacos sound great." All right, and that's the end of chapter 1. Thank you for listening. Sorry about all the background noise. I think one of my chickens wants to get out of the coop. But you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.